Hello, my name is Bizen Cruz Lopez, and I will be doing Chapter 9 breakdown of smartest kids in the world and how they got that way. So first, let's ask ourselves, why? So first, Amanda Ripley's target audience are teachers who advocate for mental health from school or such as academic stressors. On the other hand, my target audience is actually going to be my older cousin, who already lived through the rigors of high school and is also seeking more local reforms. So you may ask, why my cousin? Or why did I choose Amanda Ripley's target audience? School is, of course, very stressful, and my cousin, who now serves in the military, has personal insight to how rigorous school can be and the repercussions of so. So, let's begin. So, there's this guy, his name is Andrew Kim, and he was basically like the big dogs of the Hagwons. And I don't need to explain what Hagwons are since, we like K-pop a lot. And basically he had a chalkboard and $4 million. And like I said before, he made around $4 million a year. I'm so sorry. And he was okay kind of getting his money up, so like, honestly, yeah. And he actually ran an empire too, so he had manufacturers for his books. He had a lot of other things going on behind the scenes. And school kind of became a business model, and to make money. And in order to make money, you must attract. The journey honestly did not really matter in the Hagwons, but only the results did. And that was money in exchange for good cram schools. But because schools had more incoming teachers and jobs available in Korea, or specifically South Korea, to become a teacher, it was really competitive, I will tell you that, honey. The pizza, or think of it, or I like to call it pizza, if it helps you remember, it's like a test to see which country has the best educational performances. The higher the better. Think about it like SBAC testing, really brutal, comprendo? And then without Hagwons, South Korea would absolutely tank on the PISA exam. And one thing to note is that many students actually preferred their Hagwon teachers more than the regular teachers, because these teachers were more passionate about their jobs. Like, how when you like a certain teacher because it's your favorite subject and they're passionate about what they do. But there's actually like a hierarchy to it. The more richer and the more privileged the kids are in Korea, like the white kids we see a couple houses down in like our neighborhood, are actually centered around one-to-one tutoring. And there's like slightly cheaper ones. Slightly by me. And it's like a lecture hall. And it was packed, and it's not really as effective. But for the kids who, were of lower income or living in poverty, actually were living paycheck to paycheck, and they were forced to study by themselves. Kind of like us. How now we're like, studying by ourselves because we can't afford SAT tutors, honey. But parents still found a way to scrape money. And Andrew Kim, yes, the Andrew Kim, said he did not want his kids inside this unfair system. And there are actually a lot of scandals, like in 2007 when Korean students had their SAT scores canceled because they were caught cheating. At this point, who wouldn't want to cheat for that 1600? But people wanted reform. However, Hagwons only came back stronger, or persevered in a way. But the interesting thing is that Korea's suicide rate from 15 to 19 years old, which is how more serious cram schools get, was actually the lowest from any other country. It was the adults who were typically in university who had the highest suicide rates. The fun police, or the Hagwon police, always kind of like, this is kind of like going back to like the suicide rate questioning, and let's continue. And the fun police were also like the Hagwon police, because remember the whole curfew thingy that we kind of like talked about before outside of this video? They actually patrol at night at 11. It's either 11 or 10 p.m. Maybe you can understand since you're in training in the military having to be constantly surveilled. But the Howlands always had a backup plan. After curfew hours, they would go undercover as a library. But unfortunately, some kid kind of decided to ruin it by getting up to ask a question. And then there's this guy Eric who studied abroad in Korea, but he was also trying to escape the matrix of Korean schools after he didn't like it. So instead, he went to a vocational school that took foreigners and applied and got accepted. On his first day, he stepped into class and he was graded by the college teacher. And when she asked why didn't you come here, because he was in a Chinese dual enrollment class, he was like, oh, because I don't know, because I went to a Korean high school. And the teacher said no one should have to go to a Korean high school. And basically, it's kind of like sum it all up. This chapter, of course, is very short, and it emphasizes on the fact that Korea's economy is also tied to the Hagwons, the same way Samsung is also tied into the Korean economy. If I remember correctly, it makes up around 40% of Korea's economy. So if it were gone, it would become detrimental. And the thing that really stood out with me is that, once again, the most important part of this chapter is the fact that Hagwons are basically Korea's way of making money as well. They don't treat their students as if they were individuals. They only cared about the results. And when those results are good, more money would progress. So basically, it's not really trying to help the students, but really, it's about who can profit the most, such as Andrew Kim. And now, I kind of leave you with this question, like a hypothetical to say the least. What are ways to encourage reforms to a system that has long reigned a country? And with that, thank you very much. Oh, don't mind the email. I'm sorry, don't mind the email. I forgot.